What if the man you loved abandoned you and your unborn triplets for another woman? This is the heart-wrenching story of Opal Sanders, a woman betrayed, left sobbing in the rain, only to rise stronger than ever. Stay tuned to Dark Voices to uncover how she turned pain into power. I never wanted to be the father of a neighborhood. I'm not the father of those kids. Get out of here. With a voice full of scorn, Darren yelled as he crushed the dignity of Opal, who clutched her stomach protectively. I've got a new woman now, one I'm moving in, and I guarantee she doesn't look tired and washed up like you. He turned his back without remorse, leaving her sobbing in the rain. 5 years later, at a prestigious investor gala in Los Angeles, Darren froze when the host announced the keynote speaker. Let us welcome the CEO of Tribo Innovations, Miss Opal Sanders, and her triplets, the tech prodigies. Darren swallowed hard. They're not my kids. Want to know how Opal transformed her heartbreak into triumph? Keep watching Dark Voices for the incredible twist. It was a bright afternoon, but the weight Opal carried inside her was far from light. Sitting on the veranda of her aunt's countryside home in upstate New York, she quietly sipped her coffee, her eyes watching the sun inch toward the horizon. Her Aunt Miranda approached, the hesitation on her face clear. She sat beside Opal carefully. A few seconds of silence passed before she spoke. Sweetheart, her voice was soft, I have something I need to tell you. I hope you won't take it the wrong way. Opal looked at her, anxiety creeping in, but she kept her composure. What is it, Aunt Miranda? The older woman sighed deeply, clearly struggling. I didn't want you to hear this from someone else, but I think you have a right to know the truth. Someone told me they saw Darren at the hospital the other day. Opal's brows furrowed. The hospital? Maybe he was just getting a checkup. He wasn't alone, her aunt replied carefully. They were sure it wasn't you. Aunt Miranda paused, gauging her niece's reaction. Didn't you tell me that Darren's always too busy with work to come with you for your own checkups? Opal stopped. The air felt heavier. She stared into her coffee cup as her fingers began to tremble. Then the tears fell, slow at first, then without end. Her aunt pulled out a photo. In it, Darren was kissing a woman. The same Darren who hadn't once shown up to her OB appointments, claiming he was too busy. The same Darren who promised to love her forever. He's been cheating on you, Opal, her aunt said gravely. The words broke something inside her. She had long suspected it. He'd grown cold, always angry, even when she did nothing wrong. And now her suspicions were confirmed. Why? She whispered, her voice broken. Haven't I done enough? Am I not enough? Her aunt embraced her tightly, like a mother comforting her own child. Don't blame yourself, she said. The man you married is a fool who never learned how to be content. But Opal couldn't stop crying. Her body trembled as her hands clutched her stomach, as if to shield the unborn life inside her from the betrayal. Her uncle Paul, Miranda's husband, who'd been silently standing nearby, finally stepped forward, shaking his head, frustration on his face. I'm not even surprised, he muttered. From the beginning, I never trusted that man. I told you he was trouble. Enough, Paul, Aunt Miranda said sharply. This isn't the time to say I told you so. She needs support. Paul nodded, but the hard expression on his face didn't ease. I just worry about you, Opal, and about the baby. If this is true, you need to prepare yourself. Opal wiped her tears and nodded. But I don't want to judge him too quickly. I'm not sure yet. She squeezed her aunt's hand. When you're ready, her aunt said gently, talk to him. Find out the truth. But for now, rest for your sake and the baby's. Opal tried to smile through the pain. She knew she wasn't alone. And deep in her heart, she realized she needed to stay strong. Not for herself, but for the child growing inside her. The next day, while Opal sat quietly on the living room sofa, her aunt and uncle approached her. The air was thick with unspoken tension. It was clear from their expressions that a difficult decision had been made. Aunt Miranda took a deep breath before speaking. Sweetheart, your uncle and I talked, she began. If you want to know the truth, we'll help you. We can hire someone to investigate to find out if Darren really is seeing someone else. Opal looked into her aunt's eyes. Behind them was concern, compassion. Her uncle stood beside her, silent but firm, nodding. We won't let him hurt you anymore, Uncle Paul added. We promised your parents we'd always look after you. You deserve the truth, and if he's cheating, we won't let you face it alone. Tears welled in Opal's eyes again, but she wiped them away quickly. She nodded, forcing a smile. Thank you, Aunt Miranda. Uncle Paul, I don't know how I'd get through this without you. The three of them embraced, and though the pain in her chest hadn't gone away, a bit of the weight had been lifted. But Opal knew this wasn't the end of the hurt. At the house she shared with Darren, the atmosphere had already shifted. The warmth in his glances had disappeared. The love they once had seemed like a memory. Opal quietly placed dinner on the table. Darren sat across from her, eyes glued to his phone. Neither said a word. As dinner ended, Darren abruptly stood and slipped on his jacket. I'm going out tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. Opal didn't respond. She simply stared at the dishes, her body too numb to speak. Darren looked up, annoyance in his eyes. Opal, I said I'm going out tonight. Did you not hear me? She nodded slowly, still not meeting his gaze. She stood, gathered the plates, and headed to the sink. Up, he said again, louder, more forceful. Okay, she replied softly. Take care. She turned to walk away, but suddenly he grabbed her arm roughly, tightly. Don't walk away when I'm talking to you. His voice boomed across the kitchen. Opal froze. She felt the sting of his grip, the weight of his tone sinking deep into her chest. I'm sorry, she said weakly. I'm just tired. Darren let out a mocking laugh. Tired of what? You don't even have a job. You stay home all day doing nothing. I'm the one working my ass off for this damn family. And you're the one who's tired now? Opal's tears began to fall, though she tried to stop them. You don't know the exhaustion I carry, Darren. Her voice was faint, almost a whisper. He didn't answer. He simply let go of her arm and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. Opal sank into a chair by the table, trying to muffle her sobs. Her mind raced. Was this really the man she had chosen to marry, the man she thought she'd spend her life with? She sat quietly in the OB/GYN clinic's waiting area, gripping her small shoulder bag. Her hand occasionally stroked her stomach. Her face was blank, but underneath, waves of anxiety and sadness churned. Moments later, the OB/GYN's assistant stepped out and smiled. Miss Opal, you can come in now. Opal stood and entered the exam room, greeted by the warm smile of Dr. Elvera, her longtime physician and friend. Opal, the doctor beamed. How are you doing? Opal forced a smile. I'm okay, document. But Dr. Elvera could see through her. She studied her patient's eyes, eyes that couldn't hide the sadness. No one came with you today, your husband? The doctor gently moved a few items aside on her desk. Opal shook her head, still smiling faintly. He's busy with work. Dr. Elvera sighed softly. Well, what matters is that you're here. You're taking care of yourself and your baby. Opal smiled again. Those words brought a small bit of comfort. Let's have a look at your little one, shall we? The doctor motioned toward the examination bed. Opal lay down and lifted her blouse to expose her belly. Dr. Elvera applied the ultrasound gel and began moving the probe. Only a few seconds passed before the doctor's eyes lit up with surprise. She glanced at Opal, a spark of astonishment in her expression. Doc? Opal asked quietly, clearly nervous. Dr. Elvera turned back to her with a grin. Opal, you're having triplets. Opal's eyes widened. Triplets? The doctor nodded. I can see 3 heartbeats, 3 tiny lives growing inside you. Congratulations. You're going to be a mother of triplets. Opal gasped, placing a hand over her belly. Time seemed to slow down. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Eventually, she exhaled deeply. System, voice over text for YouTube, continued. Laugh. Thank you, document. Dr. Elvera smiled warmly. From now on, you need to be extra careful. Eat nutritious food, get plenty of rest, and avoid stress. You're going to need your strength. Opal nodded. Yes, ma'am. After the appointment, she went straight home, eager to share the news with her aunt and uncle. As soon as she arrived home, Opal was greeted by Aunt Miranda and Uncle Paul, who had just returned from the market. How was your checkup? Miranda asked while sorting the groceries. Opal smiled, tears welling in her eyes from joy this time. Auntie, Uncle, I'm having triplets, 3 babies. Miranda gasped in delight. 3? Oh my God, sweetheart, that's rare. You're blessed. Uncle Paul wrapped Opal in a warm hug next. Triple blessings. Feels amazing knowing 3 angels are on the way. After a few moments of celebration, Opal's smile softened. She looked down at her belly and her joy was quickly replaced by sadness. I just hope Darren and I can be okay for the sake of the kids. Her voice was faint, almost a whisper. Miranda and Paul didn't say a word. Instead, they both reached out and gently touched Opal's shoulders. In their eyes, she saw hope. Hope they were trying to lend her, even if things weren't whole now. She believed that one day happiness would return, not just as a wife, but as a family. That evening, after sharing the good news with Miranda and Paul, Opal couldn't wait any longer. Still tired from her OB visit, she sat waiting in the condo she and Darren shared. He hadn't arrived yet, so she decided to prepare dinner. His favorite sautéed vegetables. As she arranged the dining table, her heart raced. She was nervous, excited, unsure of how Darren would react. But deep down, she hoped to see a smile she hadn't seen in a long time, a smile filled with joy and love. Moments later, she heard the front door open. Darren had arrived. Darren, she said cheerfully, rushing to meet him. I'm so glad you're home. I have something to tell you. Without a glance in her direction, Darren walked straight to their bedroom, dropped his shoes by the door, and loosened his collar. Opal followed him quickly. Wait, just give me a minute. Can you please listen? Darren turned, visibly irritated. What is it? I'm tired. Still, Opal didn't falter. I went to the OB today. I had the baby checked. Darren, I'm having triplets. He paused. She stared at him, hopeful, hoping for excitement, surprise, any kind of emotional response, but his face stayed blank, as if he hadn't heard her at all. Triplets, she repeated, her voice trembling. There are 3 lives inside me. Instead of embracing her or reacting, Darren turned away, grabbed a jacket and his phone, and headed out the door. Darren, she called, her voice shaking. Where are you going? I've got plans. Don't bother me. His voice was cold, and he left the condo without looking back. Opal stood frozen in their room. In just a few seconds, it was like all her strength vanished. She sat on the edge of the bed and let the tears fall down her cheeks. She never imagined Darren would react that way. It hurt more than any physical pain because she knew he hadn't just abandoned her. He had walked away from their unborn children, too. While she sat there, her phone rang. It was Aunt Miranda. She picked up, trying to steady her voice despite the swelling in her eyes. Opal, Miranda said gently, clearly unsure how to break the news. I'm sorry for telling you this just now, but we had someone follow Darren earlier. It's true. He's seeing someone else. Opal's eyes widened, the phone almost slipping from her hand. What? One of your uncle's people saw them enter a hotel together. They took photos. This isn't a suspicion anymore, sweetheart. They saw it themselves. Opal began to sob uncontrollably. I didn't know. I don't know what to do. It's not your fault, sweetheart, Miranda said on the other end, her voice heavy with sorrow. And it's certainly not the fault of the children in your womb. But now more than ever, you have to be strong for them and for yourself. Opal couldn't respond. She just hugged herself tightly, tears falling faster. The happiness she had felt earlier had vanished in an instant. Her heart now felt hollow. In the silence of the night, the only sound left was the soft sobbing of a mother clinging to strength, for the sake of the children who hadn't even been born yet. Days passed, but no further proof was needed. Darren was indeed with another woman. Opal tried to be brave. She forced herself to smile in front of Aunt Miranda and Uncle Paul. But every night when she was alone, with her hands resting on her belly, the bitterness and heaviness in her heart only grew deeper. Darren still hadn't returned. No text, no call. She didn't even know where he was. One afternoon while she was in her bedroom, her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Miss Opal." A soft but clear female voice spoke. "This is Anna. Mr. Paul hired me to keep watch on your husband. I just saw him a moment ago. He's at a restaurant with a woman. It doesn't look like a business meeting." Opal gasped and immediately stood from the bed. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am. If you want, you can come now and see for yourself." She quickly asked for the address, hung up, changed clothes, and rushed out the door. She didn't care about her fatigue or the pain in her chest. She needed to see it with her own eyes. She needed to catch them. After a nearly 30-minute drive, she arrived at the restaurant. It was upscale and modern, with glass walls and warm lighting. From outside, she spotted Darren inside, smiling, seated next to a woman in a red dress. His arm was around her, like he belonged to her. Opal's breathing grew shallow. Her knees weakened, but she held herself up. Her steps quickened, and with each one, her chest tightened. She burst into the restaurant. Her heels echoed against the floor. "Darren," she shouted. Everyone turned. Customers stopped eating. Waitstaff froze. Darren quickly let go of the woman and stood up. "Opal, what are you doing here?" She didn't listen. She marched toward the woman and, without warning, grabbed a glass of juice from the table and threw it straight into her face. "You shameless witch! Home wrecker!" she yelled, trembling. The woman gasped, her expensive dress soaked. She stood up in shock and anger. "What's your problem?" "What's my problem?" Opal snapped. "I'm his wife. I'm the only woman married to the man you're flirting with. You're the one having an affair with a married man. You have no dignity." Darren grabbed her arm. "Opal, stop it. We're in public." "Let go of me," she shouted, trying to pull away. "After cheating on me, you want me to stay quiet?" The other woman laughed bitterly. "So, you're Opal?" She eyed her from head to toe. "You're his wife. Oh, God. No wonder he replaced you. What did you say?" Opal's voice trembled. The woman sneered. "You look like a tired mess. You're completely unkempt and huge. No wonder Darren looked for someone else." "Enough." But the woman kept going. "He chose me because I'm more fun. I'm prettier. I'm fresh. I'm not clingy like you, always begging for attention. Accept it. Women like you always get replaced because no man can stand looking at someone like you. So just shut up and accept that he loves me more." It felt like 1,000 needles pierced Opal's heart, especially when Darren pulled the woman closer by the waist, a silent confirmation of whose side he was on. Opal's entire body trembled, but through the heartbreak, her resolve didn't waver. "I don't know how you can live with yourself," she said coldly. "You're sleeping with a married man, a man whose wife is carrying his children. You're the shameless one. And you, Darren," she turned to him, "you're the worst of all." She turned to the surrounding crowd. She knew everyone was watching. "Yes, I'm the wife of that man. I'm pregnant with triplets, and this is the woman he chose over me. They're mocking me." Silence fell over the restaurant. Even the waiters stopped moving, but their eyes, many looked at Darren and the other woman with judgment. Opal's tears fell again, but she showed no weakness. She turned and walked away, leaving the two of them in the middle of shame. Their quiet fury and lack of remorse may never change. Behind her, she left only silence, but in her heart, her decision was clear. She would never go back to that man. Opal hadn't even made it far from the restaurant when a strong hand suddenly grabbed her. She almost screamed in surprise. It was Darren. "What are you doing? Let go of me!" she shouted, trying to pull away as he gripped her arm tightly. But he didn't listen. He seemed completely indifferent to the people still watching the scene unfold. He dragged her down the steps and away from the restaurant's eyes. The sky seemed to grieve with her. Cold rain began to fall, soaking her clothes and hair. "I'm hurting," she cried, one hand clutching her stomach, shivering from the cold and pain. Still, his grip tightened. When they reached the edge of the sidewalk under the punishing rain, he finally let go. "What are you doing this for, Darren?" she asked, weeping. Her voice barely rose above the sound of the rain. "Why did you choose her over me?" Darren inhaled deeply. For the first time, he looked her in the eyes, but they weren't the same eyes she had once known. They were cold, like stone, untouched by warmth. "Everything Georgina said back there was true," he said firmly. "I love her." The words hit her like a hammer, repeated blows to her chest. "You're choosing that over me? I'm your wife, Darren." He suddenly slapped her hard. She staggered backward, her lips trembling. "You have no right to say that about her," he yelled. "You don't know her." She could only hold her cheek, now burning from the hit. Now the pain was no longer just emotional. It was physical, too. "I want a divorce," he said. She nearly dropped to her knees. "What about our babies?" she asked, voice shaking between sobs. "Our children?" "Children?" Darren raised an eyebrow, his tone icy. "Those aren't my kids. Georgina and I are expecting our own. Don't force those kids on me." Opal stepped back, holding her stomach as if shielding the three lives inside her from the nightmare unfolding. "You're heartless," she whispered, trying to keep her tears at bay. "How could you say those children aren't yours? How could you do this to them? Even if you don't love me anymore because I'm tired and worn down, how can you do this to them? Our babies, Darren. 3 lives. 3 kids," Darren roared, as though mocking her. "You think I'm ready to be the father of 3 kids? I didn't sign up to be a dad to the whole damn neighborhood. I'm not their father. Get out of here." Opal's tears poured, mingling with the rain. Everything she had dreamed of collapsed like a house of cards. "I've got a new woman now, Georgina. We're having a baby, too, and we'll build our own family," he added arrogantly. "And trust me, she doesn't look tired and haggard like you." Opal felt her world explode at every word. The rain felt like lashes across her skin. She said nothing. She had no more words, no more strength. Darren, with one final insult, turned and walked away. No glance back, no concern. He left her standing in the rain, soaked, broken, not in body, but in soul. And there, on that dark street, beneath the cold storm, she clung to one thing, the life growing inside her. 3 innocent lives within her. The only reason left to keep going. "I won't give up," she whispered, straightening her back. "Even if your father left us, I will never leave you, my children. I won't abandon you." Opal arrived drenched at her aunt's house, trembling from the cold. Her head was bowed, and she could barely walk straight. Her hair clung wetly to her face. Her clothes were soaked, sticking to her skin, and every step she took seemed to carry the weight of the world. Miranda heard the gate creak open and immediately rushed outside. Uncle Paul followed, his face tight with worry. "Opal," Miranda called as she hurried to her niece, wrapping a towel over her shoulders. "Oh my God, what happened to you? You're soaking wet. Where have you been, sweetheart?" Paul added, quickly ushering her inside. Come on, let's get you inside before you get sick. They held her by the arms and gently guided her into the house. They sat her down on the sofa and handed her a hot cup of tea without asking anything yet. Opal didn't speak right away. Her lips quivered, not just from the cold, but from emotion. Her eyes were full of tears. She set the cup down slowly. Only then did she speak, her voice low and broken. Darren left me. The words were barely above a whisper, but enough for her relatives to hear. He has another woman. What you told me before, it's true. And he hit me. Miranda gasped and stood up in anger. He what? She grabbed her head in disbelief, furious. He hit you? Opal's tears fell freely as she explained everything. Uncle Paul couldn't believe what he was hearing. I didn't think he could be that low, that heartless. You're carrying his children, and he treats you like that. Opal nodded, hugging herself as she trembled from the pain. He said they're not his. He said he's happy with his new woman and he doesn't want to see me again. He told me to leave. That man is a monster, Paul snapped. He has no conscience, no heart. He's not even a man. He's an animal. Miranda moved closer and wrapped Opal in a gentle hug, stroking her back. Sweetheart, listen to us, she said softly but firmly. Don't ever go back to that man. You don't have to beg for love from someone who can't even see your worth. We're here for you. For you and the babies. You don't have to go through this alone. Opal broke down in Miranda's arms. All the strength she had been holding in finally gave way. But how? She sobbed. How do I raise 3 kids alone? I can't do this by myself. You're not alone, Miranda whispered. She kissed her niece's forehead. You have a family here. You have an aunt and uncle ready to fight for you and your children. They'll never lack anything because you are full of love, more than that man could ever give them. Paul nodded. Start over, Opal. You don't need Darren to be whole. You and your children, you are already a complete family. We're here for you. And there, in the midst of tears, pain, and sorrow, a small light began to shine in Opal's heart. The fight wasn't over. She may be shattered now, but surrounded by those who truly loved her, she knew she would rise again not just for herself, but for the 3 tiny hearts growing inside her. In the following days, Opal made the firm decision to separate from Darren. She no longer hoped he would come back, especially after he had openly said he didn't care about their children. It hurt. There wasn't a night she didn't cry. But despite the pain, she forced herself to stand. There was no place for her in a relationship without love. She no longer intended to give herself to a man who saw her as nothing. One evening, while Opal was having dinner with Aunt Miranda and Uncle Paul, her uncle brought up something again. Sweetheart, Paul said gently, I want you to reconsider what I told you. Go to Oregon. Stay with your cousin Elena. It'll be a fresh start, safe, peaceful. Darren won't be there. No memories, only a new beginning. And when you're ready, we'll help you manage the company your parents left you. Opal chewed silently, but they could see the weight in her expression. After a few seconds, she nodded. I've decided I think it's best for me and for the children if we live there. Her aunt smiled warmly. That's good, sweetheart. But don't worry, we're not going to leave you. We'll come with you to Oregon so you won't have to raise the kids alone. Thank you so much, Opal said quietly. Just remember, her uncle added, whatever happens, we're here for you. In the following weeks, they all busied themselves with Opal's documents and preparations. Her aunts and cousins helped her every step of the way. When the day of their departure finally came, it wasn't easy to leave. But she carried with her something more powerful, hope for a new life in a new place. The first few weeks in Oregon were difficult. New climate, new language, new culture. But she learned quickly, thanks to the people around her who never left her side. Months passed, and little by little, Opal learned how to be happy again in their new life. The memories still hurt, but she no longer cried every night. Instead, she prayed for strength to face each tomorrow, and for the courage to be a good mother. Then the day she'd been waiting for arrived, her delivery. She was restless, anxious, afraid. But when she heard her baby's cry for the first time, all the pain she had carried seemed to melt away. She gave birth to 3 healthy babies, 2 boys and 1 girl. The first was Nikolai. The second, another boy named Paul, and the last, their little princess, the girl who looked just like her. She whispered tearfully, "That's her name." As she cradled the 3 tiny miracles, fruits of her strength and perseverance, tears fell from her eyes, not from sadness, but joy. At last, she had found peace. She no longer needed the love of a man who couldn't fight for her, because in her arms were 3 hearts overflowing with all the love she'd ever need in this world. And for the first time in a long time, Opal smiled with her whole heart. 5 years passed, and Opal had come a long way from a mother who was rejected and abandoned for another woman to a successful and respected woman in her own right. Opal had not just survived, she had thrived. She was now a well-known CEO based in Portland, running a company that supported single mothers across the United States and parts of Europe. Her children were her reason, her motivation for everything. They were also known as child prodigies in tech, drawing admiration and attention and making it easier for people to want to work with and learn from her. She expanded the business her parents had left behind with the help of those closest to her, especially her children, who had stood by her through every hardship. Her company flourished, and her life had changed, not just in appearance, but in its very foundation. Whenever Opal looked back on what she had been through to reach this point, she couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. At some point, she even thanked fate that it had all happened. Because if it hadn't, she wouldn't have become who she was now. If she had stayed in that marriage, if she had remained with Darren, she might not have become the strong, successful person she was today. It was true what they said, everything happens for a reason. One morning, on her way to the office, Opal walked through the sleek, modern lobby of her company's downtown headquarters. She wore a crisp white coat that complemented her poise and confidence. She smiled politely at her employees as they greeted her with respect and admiration. "Good morning, Miss Opal," said her assistant, Miller, holding a clipboard with her day's agenda. "Good morning, Miller," Opal replied, accepting a coffee cup from her. "You have a conference call with investors at 10 a.m., then prep for the charity gala at 1 p.m. And lastly, a dinner meeting with the German partner at 6:30. Opal shook her head lightly. It was a full schedule today. But she had promised her kids something far more important. "Cancel the last 2, she said. "I promised my kids I'd pick them up from school today. I never break promises to them." "Yes, ma'am. I'll notify them now." "Thank you, Miller," Opal said with a smile. After her morning meeting, she changed into a more casual coat and headed to her car. While driving to the kids' school, she played a voicemail left by Nikolai earlier that morning on the nanny's phone. "Mom, don't forget you promised us ice cream after school." Opal chuckled. Of course, she wouldn't forget. She was a good mother, and her children adored her. Despite her busy schedule, she always made time for them. She didn't want her kids to grow up thinking work mattered more than they did. She wanted to be the kind of mother they'd be proud of, not just for her success, but for the way she loved and cared for them. When she arrived at school, Opal immediately spotted her 3 children waiting by the gate. Nikolai, now obsessed with science and reading, stood beside Parville, who was quiet and observant. Their little princess clutched a coloring book, a flower-shaped clip in her hair. "Mommy!" They shouted in unison, running toward her with open arms. "Oh, my babies, how was school?" Opal asked, hugging them tightly. "It was fun." "Elra drew another unicorn," Nikolai said excitedly, pointing at his sister's paper. "And I got a star from my teacher." "She said I'm getting better at math," Pavel added proudly. "Very good, kids." "I'm so proud of you," Opal said, bending down to kiss each of them on the forehead. "As promised, ice cream." "Yes!" they yelled, throwing their hands into the air. Inside the car, as they drove along a familiar road home, the 4 of them laughed together. Opal's heart swelled with a joy no words could measure. The beginning of their story hadn't been easy, but 5 years of hard work, tears, and faith had led to this reward, the simple happiness of motherhood and a life she was finally in control of. One afternoon, while Opal worked in her home office inside their spacious house in Portland, she flipped between her laptop and the papers on her desk. She had a virtual board meeting the next day and still needed to finalize some documents. Wearing glasses, a simple blouse, and a loose cardigan, her hair tied up, she diligently reviewed contracts. Suddenly, the door opened. 3 familiar little faces peeked through. "Mommy," the triplets chimed sweetly, their voices full of affection. "Yes, my loves," Opal responded, turning away from her laptop. They rushed to her side, each with their own way of asking. Era wrapped her arms around her waist. Nikolai sat beside her, holding a drawing of a carousel. Pavel quietly placed a flyer for a newly opened indoor amusement park in front of her laptop. "We want to go out, Mommy," Era said in a pleading tone. "Let's go to the mall, please," added Nikolai. Pavel clapped quietly in agreement. Opal sighed, looking from her laptop to their eager faces. "All right," she smiled, stroking their heads. "But only if you promise me to behave. No running around." "Yes, Mommy," they answered in unison, bouncing with joy. Within a few minutes, the 4 of them were ready. Each of the triplets had their own nanny, so Opal didn't have a hard time preparing them. She wore an elegant black dress and a trench coat. Her makeup was minimal, enhancing her natural beauty even more. The triplets were dressed in coordinated casual outfits, white long sleeves and jeans. They were accompanied by 2 discreetly dressed bodyguards in black suits. When they arrived at the mall, the triplets were instantly filled with excitement. They walked hand in hand, Opal and Era leading while Pavel and Nikolai raced each other near the escalators. "Remember, no running around," Opal reminded them. "Yes, Mama," Nikolai replied. But in his excitement, Pavel didn't notice a man approaching and accidentally bumped into him. "Oops," Pavel exclaimed, quickly rubbing his forehead. "I'm sorry, sir." The man was tall and sharply dressed, dark gray coat, sleek turtleneck, and leather boots. He looked like he had stepped out of a luxury magazine, with sharp features, a refined elegance, and an intimidating presence. He crouched down to Pavel's level and spoke in a low but gentle voice. "It's okay. Just be careful next time, little man," he said in Russian. Alarmed, Opal and Era approached quickly. "I'm so sorry about that." "He didn't mean to," Opal said as she looked up at the man, then smiled politely. "It's okay, really. No harm done." Opal smiled back, then froze. The man looked familiar. She couldn't place where she had seen him before. Suddenly, Era pointed. "Mommy, he's an actor. I saw him on Nanny Annie's phone." Nikolai's eyes widened. "That's right, Mama. He's the guy on Nanny Annie's wallpaper." Opal's brow furrowed. She looked at the man again, and it clicked. It was Leonid Miklov, the wealthiest businessman in the country, owner of an international tech conglomerate and famously private. He rarely appeared in the media and was the kind of man social media fawned over despite hardly posting personal photos. Embarrassed, Opal lowered her gaze. "You're Mr. Miklov, aren't you?" He smiled slightly. "I guess your children recognized me first." Era beamed. "Nanny Annie likes you. She said you're the most handsome man in Russia." "You really are handsome, sir." "Like a prince," added Nikolai. "I'm sorry about them," Opal said quickly. "They're just very honest." "I like honesty," Leonid replied, eyes now on the triplets who were looking up at him curiously. "You've got bright kids." A few moments later, a woman in heels and a navy blue pencil skirt approached them. She held a clipboard and wore a Bluetooth earpiece. "Mr. Miklov," she said politely in Russian, "your next meeting is in 15 minutes. We need to leave now, sir." Leonid glanced at his watch, then looked back at the children, offering them another warm smile. The smile was so disarming that even passers-by in the mall had paused to stare. "I have to go now. Business calls," he said, crouching again to the kids' level. "You 3, be good to your mom, okay? And no more running into people." "Yes, mister," the triplets replied in chorus, grinning and waving. Bye-bye, shouted Nikolai. See you again, sir, added Pavel. Bye, handsome prince, Era said with a giggle, causing Opal to glance down shyly and Leonid to nod, amused. Do svidaniya, he said as he stood Russian for goodbye. Or, until we meet again. He turned to Opal, smiling kindly. Take care. You too, Mr. Miklov, Opal replied, almost in a whisper, watching him walk away with his secretary. The triplets' eyes followed him until he disappeared into the crowd. Leonid carried himself like a character from a modern-day fairy tale. Once he was out of sight, Era looked up at her mom. Mommy, she whispered. Yes, sweetheart? Opal asked, adjusting Era's hair clip. I like him, Era said, placing a hand over her chest. He's kind. His eyes are nice. Opal smiled and glanced again in the direction Leonid had gone. Really? She teased. Are you sure it's not just because Nanny Annie has a crush on him? Era grinned. Maybe, but I like him too. Nikolai chimed in. He looks like a prince from the cartoons, but serious. Super serious, added Pavel, pointing toward where Leonid had walked away. They continued their stroll through the mall, but the triplets couldn't stop talking about Leonid. Opal simply smiled, quietly admiring her children and their innocent fascination. Inside Opal's elegant office on the top floor of one of the most prestigious business towers in Portland, a serious conversation was taking place. She sat confidently in her executive chair. In front of her stood her assistant Miller, her Aunt Miranda, and Uncle Paul, along with their assistant and a trusted team of executives. Ma'am, Miller began, holding a few documents. I've reviewed the updated expansion strategy. If we could establish a partnership with Miklov Group of Enterprises, our growth could double in the next 2 years. Opal furrowed her brow as she read the papers, then glanced up. Miklov Group?